Imagine showing up to a blind date in your worst clothes. No makeup, hair tied back like you just didn't care. Certain the rich man waiting would turn away the moment he saw you. Louise Carter did exactly that. She walked into that expensive restaurant wearing faded jeans, an old sweater, and sneakers that had seen better days. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun. No lipstick, no perfume. Just her, raw and unpolished, ready to prove a point, that men like him only cared about the surface. But she never expected what happened next. Stay with me until the end. This story will show you that real love sees what money can't buy. And if you believe some connections are meant to be, hit like and subscribe, because you won't want to miss how this unfolds. The restaurant was all soft lighting and quiet elegance, white tablecloths, crystal glasses catching the glow of candles, the kind of place where every detail whispered wealth. Louise felt the stares the moment she stepped inside. A hostess glanced at her outfit, then quickly looked away. A couple at a nearby table exchanged whispers. She didn't care. Her friend Mia had set this up. Just one date, Lou. He's successful, kind, and honestly, he needs someone real. Louise had laughed bitterly. Successful men didn't want real, they wanted perfect, polished, performative. So she dressed like this on purpose, a test, a shield. If he walked away, she'd be proven right. If he stayed, well, that seemed impossible. She spotted him near the window. Nathan Cole. He was exactly what she expected. Tailored charcoal suit, dark hair perfectly styled, strong jawline. The kind of face that belonged on magazine covers. He was looking down at his phone, his expression unreadable, distant, guarded, like someone who'd learned not to expect much from anyone. Louise hesitated. For a brief, foolish second, she almost turned around. But then he looked up. Their eyes met, and something shifted in the air between them. Nathan stood slowly, his gaze never leaving hers. He didn't frown, didn't glance at her clothes with judgment or disappointment. He just looked at her, really looked, like he was trying to see past the fabric and into something deeper. Louise's heart stumbled. She walked toward the table, her defenses already cracking in ways she didn't understand. He pulled out her chair before she could sit. His movements were careful, almost gentle. "Louise?" His voice was lower than she expected, warmer. "That's me." She sat, bracing herself for the polite excuse, the fake emergency call, the early exit. But Nathan sat across from her and smiled. Not a boardroom smile, not a practiced, charming smile, just real. "I'm Nathan. It's good to meet you." The waiter appeared with menus. Nathan ordered wine without asking her preference, and Louise felt her walls go back up. Of course, men like him always assumed control. But then he paused, glanced at her, and shook his head. "Actually, what do you like? I shouldn't have assumed." Louise blinked. Water's fine." "You sure?" She nodded, caught off guard by the sincerity in his tone. The first few minutes were awkward, stilted. Louise waited for him to check his watch, to mention a meeting, to find some graceful way to leave. But he didn't. He asked her questions. Not the usual shallow ones. Where do you work? What do you do? But real ones. What's something you believe that most people don't? Louise stared at him. What? I'm tired of small talk, Nathan said quietly. I want to know what matters to you. She didn't know how to answer that. No one had ever asked her something like that before. She looked down at her hands, rough from working double shifts at the bookstore, and felt a strange tightness in her chest. I believe people show you who they are when they think you're not worth impressing. Nathan went still. The silence stretched between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that held weight, meaning. "Is that why you wore that?" he asked softly, nodding toward her sweater. Louise's cheeks burned. She lifted her chin. "Yes." "Smart." She hadn't expected that. "What?" "You wanted to see if I'd stay." Nathan leaned forward slightly, his eyes steady on hers. "I get it. I do the same thing. Different method, same reason." "You test people?" "Every day." His smile was sad. "When you have money, everyone wants something. A deal, a favor, a piece of you they can sell. After a while, you stop trusting anyone." Louise felt something crack open inside her. This man, this cold, successful CEO everyone talked about, wasn't cold at all. He was just tired, lonely, like her. "So why agree to a blind date?" she asked. Nathan looked out the window, his jaw tight. "Because I'm tired of being alone, and because my sister said if I didn't try, I'd regret it." He looked back at her. "What about you?" "My friend Mia wouldn't stop nagging me." They both smiled, small, cautious smiles, but real. The food came. They ate slowly, talking between bites. The conversation drifted from books to cities to childhood dreams they'd buried under bills and responsibilities. Louise found herself laughing, actually laughing, at a story Nathan told about his first disastrous business pitch. He listened when she talked about her parents, about losing her mom young, about working her way through community college. He didn't offer pity, didn't try to fix anything. He just listened. Hours passed. The restaurant began to empty. Waiters hovered politely. Nathan glanced at his watch and frowned. "I didn't realize how late it was." Louise's heart sank. This was it. The end. But Nathan didn't stand. He looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read, something vulnerable and uncertain. "Can I be honest with you? Please. I haven't enjoyed a conversation this much in years." He hesitated. "And I don't want it to end." Louise's breath caught. "Neither do I." Nathan smiled. A real smile this time, unguarded and warm. He paid the bill despite her protests, and they walked outside together. The city was quieter now, streetlights casting soft pools of gold on the wet pavement. It had rained while they were inside. They stood on the sidewalk, neither one moving toward a cab or a car. "I know this might sound crazy," Nathan said quietly, "but would you walk with me? Just for a little while?" Louise should have said no, should have protected herself. But instead she nodded. They walked side by side through the city, not touching, just existing in the same space. Nathan asked her more questions. What made her happy? What scared her? What she wanted from life that had nothing to do with money or success. And Louise realized something terrifying. She was falling for him, not because of his suit or his wealth or his perfect face, but because of the way he listened, the way he looked at her like she mattered, the way he let his guard down bit by bit, showing her the man beneath the armor. When they finally stopped in front of her building, a modest apartment complex far from his world, Nathan turned to face her. "Can I see you again?" Louise's throat tightened. She wanted to say yes, wanted it so badly it scared her. But fear crept in. What if this was just a moment? What if tomorrow he woke up and realized she didn't fit into his life? "I don't know if that's a good idea." Nathan's face fell, but he didn't argue. He just nodded slowly. "I understand." He started to walk away, and Louise felt her heart break. But then he stopped, turned back. "For what it's worth," he said quietly, "you're the first person in a long time who made me feel like myself again. Not Nathan Cole, CEO, just Nathan." He walked away into the night, and Louise stood there in her old clothes, tears streaming down her face, wondering if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. Louise didn't sleep that night. She lay in her small bedroom, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment, every word, every look. The way Nathan's eyes had softened when she laughed, the way his voice had dropped when he admitted he was lonely, the way he'd walked away without fighting, respecting her decision even though it clearly hurt him. She'd tested him, and he'd passed. So why had she let him go? Morning came too soon. Louise dragged herself to work at the bookstore, her eyes heavy, her heart heavier. She shelved books mechanically, barely noticing customers, lost in thoughts of what if. Her phone buzzed. A text from Mia. "So? How was it? Details now." Louise stared at the message. She didn't know how to answer. How do you explain that you met someone who saw you, really saw you, and you pushed him away because you were terrified? She typed back, "It was good. I don't think I'll see him again." 3 dots appeared immediately. Then, "What? Why?" Louise didn't respond. Across the city, Nathan sat in his corner office 50 floors above the streets, surrounded by glass and steel and success. His assistant had brought him coffee an hour ago. It sat untouched, cold. He couldn't focus. Every meeting felt hollow. Every decision felt meaningless. All he could think about was her. The way Louise had looked at him with those guarded, honest eyes. The way she'd smiled when she finally relaxed. The way she'd said his name, just Nathan, like it meant something. He'd told himself he wouldn't chase her. She'd made her choice. He had to respect that. But respect didn't make the ache go away. His phone rang. His sister, Emma. "How did it go?" Nathan leaned back in his chair, rubbing his face. "Better than I expected." "So you're seeing her again?" Silence. "Nathan..." She said no, Emma. "Did you fight for her?" "She asked me to leave her alone. What was I supposed to do?" Emma's voice softened. "You're supposed to figure out if she said no because she doesn't care or because she's scared. There's a difference." Nathan closed his eyes. He knew the difference. He'd seen it in Louise's face when she'd pulled back. Fear, not rejection. Fear. "What if I'm wrong?" he asked quietly. "What if I push and she really doesn't want this? Then you'll know. But right now, you're both just stuck." After Emma hung up, Nathan sat alone in his office, the city sprawling below him, and made a decision. He wouldn't chase her, but he wouldn't give up either. 3 days passed. Louise told herself she was fine. She went to work, came home, read books she couldn't focus on, pretended her chest didn't ache every time she thought about him. On the 4th day, a delivery arrived at the bookstore. A single book, wrapped in brown paper, tied with string. No card, no name. Louise's hands trembled as she opened it. The Little Prince. She opened the cover. Inside, in elegant handwriting, was a single line. "What is essential is invisible to the eye." Her throat closed. She knew who sent it, and she knew why. That night, Louise sat on her fire escape, the book in her lap, tears streaming down her face. Nathan wasn't buying her things. He wasn't trying to impress her. He was showing her he'd listened. He'd remembered her saying once during their long walk, that this was her mother's favorite book, that she'd lost her copy years ago and never replaced it. He'd remembered. The next morning, Louise woke with resolve. She found Nathan's office address online, took 2 buses across the city, stood outside the gleaming tower, feeling small and out of place in her thrift store coat. Security stopped her at the entrance. "I need to see Nathan Cole." The guard looked her up and down. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but..." "No appointment, no entry." Louise's face burned. Of course, she didn't belong in his world. What was she thinking? She turned to leave. "Louise!" She froze. Nathan stood near the elevators, his suit perfectly pressed, his expression stunned. He'd been heading out, briefcase in hand, but now he just stared at her like he couldn't believe she was real. Louise's voice cracked. "I got your book." Nathan crossed the lobby in quick strides. He stopped in front of her, his eyes searching hers. "You came here." "I shouldn't have let you walk away," Louise whispered. "I was scared. I'm still scared, but I can't stop thinking about you." Nathan's breath caught. For a moment, he just looked at her. Then slowly he smiled. "I can't stop thinking about you either." People were staring. Important-looking men in expensive suits, women in designer heels, all watching this mismatched pair with curiosity and judgment. Nathan didn't care. "Come with me," he said softly. He led her to a private elevator. They rode up in silence, the tension thick and electric. When the doors opened, they stepped into his office. All windows and light and breathtaking views. Louise walked to the glass, overwhelmed. "This is your world," she said quietly, "and mine is so different." Nathan came to stand beside her. "I don't care about worlds, Louise. I care about you." She turned to face him. "Why?" "Because you're real." His voice was raw, honest. "Because when you look at me, you don't see a bank account or a title. You just see me. Do you know how rare that is?" Louise's eyes filled. "I see someone who's lonely, like me. Someone who's been hurt, like me. Then let's not be lonely anymore." It should have been a perfect moment, but doubt crept in, cold and sharp. "Nathan, I work in a bookstore. I live in a tiny apartment. I can't afford dinners like the one we had. I don't fit into..." He stepped closer. "Stop." "But, Louise," he said her name like a prayer. "I don't want you to fit. I want you to be exactly who you are." Her breath hitched. Nathan reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he touched her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. "Let me take you to dinner again. Something simple. Your choice." Louise's walls crumbled. "Okay." His smile was brilliant. That evening, they went to a small diner Louise loved. Cracked vinyl booths, chipped mugs, the smell of coffee and fries. Nathan looked completely out of place in his suit, but he didn't complain. He ordered a burger and listened while Louise told him about her day. And somewhere between the terrible coffee and the too loud jukebox, something shifted. They stopped performing, stopped testing, just existed together, messy and imperfect and real. When Nathan drove her home that night, in his obscenely expensive car that made her neighbors stare, he walked her to her door. "Can I call you tomorrow?" he asked. "Yes." "And the day after?" "Yes." He smiled, and Louise realized she was smiling too. But as she watched him drive away, a whisper of fear returned. This felt too good, too right. And in her experience, things that felt this way never lasted. The weeks that followed felt like a dream Louise was afraid to wake from. Nathan called every morning before work, not to talk business or impress her, just to hear her voice, to ask how she slept. To tell her about some small thing that made him think of her. A song on the radio, a quote in a meeting, the way the sunrise looked from his apartment. They saw each other whenever they could. Quick coffee between her shifts, late dinners after his meetings, long walks through the city with no destination, just the two of them existing in the same space. Louise started to believe this might be real, but the world around them had other ideas. It started small, a photo. Someone had taken a picture of them at a cafe, Nathan in his tailored suit, Louise in her worn jacket, and posted it online. The caption was cruel. "Billionaire CEO slumming it." Louise saw it when Mia texted her the link. Her stomach dropped. The comments were worse. What's he doing with her? Gold digger vibes. She's probably after his money. He could have anyone. Why her? Louise's hands shook as she scrolled. Each word was a knife, cutting into the fragile hope she'd allowed herself to feel. She'd known this would happen, known people would judge, but seeing it in writing made it real, made it hurt. She didn't tell Nathan, but he noticed something was wrong the next time they met. They were sitting on a bench in the park, the autumn air cool, leaves falling around them. Nathan had brought her favorite tea, but Louise held the cup without drinking, staring at nothing. "Talk to me." She shook her head. "It's nothing." "Louise." His voice was gentle but firm. She looked at him, at this man who'd somehow worked his way past every defense she had, and felt tears burn her eyes. "People are talking about us, online." Nathan's jaw tightened. "What are they saying? That I'm using you, that I don't belong, that you could do better." "That's not true." "Isn't it?" Louise's voice cracked. "Look at us, Nathan. Really look. You're you. And I'm just... Don't." He set down his coffee and turned to face her fully. "Don't diminish yourself because other people can't see what I see." "And what do you see?" "Someone brave, someone real, someone who makes me feel like I'm not alone anymore." His eyes were fierce. "I don't care what strangers think, Louise. I care what you think. Do you want this? Us?" "Yes," she whispered. "But I'm scared." "So am I." That honesty broke something open in her chest. She'd been so focused on her own fear, she'd forgotten Nathan was risking something too. His privacy, his carefully controlled image, the walls he'd built to protect himself. He was choosing her anyway. Louise reached for his hand. He laced their fingers together, and they sat in silence holding on. But the scrutiny didn't stop. Nathan's business partners started asking questions, concerned, probing questions about his new relationship and whether it was affecting his judgment. His father called, a man Nathan rarely spoke to, demanding to know who this woman was and what she wanted from the family fortune. Nathan ignored them all, until his mother got involved. Victoria Cole was a force of nature. Old money, old expectations. She arrived at Nathan's apartment unannounced one evening, her expression carved from ice. Nathan was supposed to meet Louise for dinner. Instead, he texted her. "Something came up. I'm so sorry." "Tomorrow?" Louise stared at the message, her heart sinking. She told herself it was fine, he was busy, important. Of course things came up, but doubt crept in like cold water. At Nathan's apartment, Victoria sat across from her son, her posture perfect, her disapproval palpable. "I've seen the photos." Nathan kept his voice level. I assumed you would. What are you doing, Nathan? I'm seeing someone. Someone who makes me happy. Victoria's lips thinned. She's unsuitable. Don't. She has no education, no family, no connections. What exactly does she bring to your life besides distraction? Nathan stood, anger flooding through him. She brings honesty, kindness. She sees me as a person, not an asset. Love doesn't pay bills, darling, and it certainly doesn't build empires. I don't need her to build anything, I need her to be herself. Victoria studied her son with something almost like pity. You think you're different? That you can have some fairy tale romance that transcends class and expectation, but you're not different, Nathan. You're a coal, and coals marry strategically. Like you did. The silence was brutal. Victoria stood, gathering her coat. When this falls apart, and it will, don't say I didn't warn you. She paused at the door. She'll never fit into your life, and eventually you'll resent her for it. After she left, Nathan stood alone in his apartment, his mother's words echoing. He wanted to believe she was wrong, but a small, poisonous part of him wondered if she was right. The next day, Nathan took Louise to dinner as promised, but something was different. He was distracted, distant. His smiles didn't reach his eyes. Louise felt the shift like a physical thing. What's wrong? Nothing. Nathan, my mother knows about us. Louise went still. And she thinks it's a mistake. The words hung between them, sharp and cutting. Do you? Louise's voice was barely audible. Do you think I'm a mistake? No. But his hesitation before answering told her everything. Louise stood, her legs unsteady. I should go. Louise, wait. You're ashamed of me. I'm not. You are. Maybe not of me exactly, but of what people will think, what your family will think. Tears streamed down her face. I knew this would happen. I knew I didn't belong in your world. Nathan reached for her, but she stepped back. I can't do this, she whispered. I can't love someone who's afraid to love me back. I'm not afraid. Then prove it. The challenge hung in the air between them. Nathan opened his mouth, closed it. He wanted to say the words she needed to hear, wanted to promise her that nothing else mattered. But the doubt his mother had planted grew roots. Louise saw it in his face, the uncertainty, the fear. She turned and walked out of the restaurant. This time, Nathan didn't follow. Louise made it 2 blocks before she collapsed onto a bench sobbing. People passed by, uncomfortable, avoiding eye contact. She felt utterly alone. Her phone buzzed. A text from Nathan. I'm sorry. Just that. Nothing else. Louise stared at the words until they blurred. Sorry wasn't enough. She went home and cried herself to sleep, clutching the copy of The Little Prince he'd given her. Nathan sat in his apartment, staring at his phone, hating himself. He'd let her walk away. Again. Because some part of him, the part shaped by years of criticism and expectation, believed his mother might be right. That love wasn't enough. That eventually the differences between their worlds would matter. He poured himself a drink he didn't want and stood at the window watching the city lights blur. And for the first time in weeks, he felt completely, devastatingly alone. Somewhere across the city, Louise felt the exact same way. 2 weeks passed like an open wound. Louise went through the motions of living. She woke up, went to work, smiled when customers asked for recommendations, went home, stared at walls. She told herself she was fine, that this was for the best, that she'd known all along it couldn't work. but fine felt like drowning in slow motion. Mia came over one evening with wine and takeout, determined to break through the fog. "You need to talk about it." "There's nothing to talk about." "Lou, you're miserable." Louise stared at her plate. "I'm okay." "You're not, and lying about it doesn't make it true." Mia reached across the small table, touching her friend's hand. "What happened?" Louise's throat tightened. "He was ashamed of me. Of us." "Did he say that?" "He didn't have to. I saw it in his face when he talked about his mother, when he hesitated." She wiped her eyes roughly. "I asked him to prove he wasn't afraid. He couldn't." Mia was quiet for a moment. "Maybe he was just scared. That doesn't mean he doesn't care." "Scared of what? Of people judging him, of his family disapproving?" Louise's voice broke. "I've dealt with judgment my whole life, being poor, being invisible. If he can't handle a little criticism for being with me, then maybe his mother was right. Maybe I don't belong in his world. Or maybe," Mia said softly, "you both just need to figure out if love is worth fighting for." But Louise was tired of fighting, tired of hoping, tired of feeling like she had to prove her worth. She wanted someone who just knew. Across the city, Nathan was drowning too. He threw himself into work with brutal intensity, 16-hour days, back-to-back meetings, acquisitions and mergers and strategies that meant nothing. His assistant worried. His sister called repeatedly. He ignored everyone, but he couldn't ignore the emptiness. Every morning he reached for his phone to text Louise before remembering she was gone. Every evening he imagined calling her, hearing her voice, apologizing until she forgave him. But what would he say? That he'd let doubt win? That he'd been a coward? Emma finally cornered him at his office, walking past his assistant despite protests. "You look terrible." Nathan didn't look up from his laptop. "I'm fine." "You're not. You're miserable. And you're making everyone around you miserable." Emma sat across from him, her expression serious. "Why did you let her go?" She walked away. "Because you didn't fight for her." Nathan's hands stilled on the keyboard. "What was I supposed to do, Emma? Ignore reality? She doesn't fit into this world. You know it. Mother knows it. Eventually, Louise would know it too. So you pushed her away first, to protect yourself." The accuracy of that statement hit like a punch. "I was protecting both of us." "From what? Happiness?" Emma leaned forward. "Nathan, I've watched you exist for years. Just exist. Going through motions, building wealth, achieving success that means nothing because you have no one to share it with. Then Louise came along, and for the first time, I saw you smile. Really smile." Her voice softened. "Don't throw that away because you're afraid. What if Mother's right? What if the differences between us become too much? Then you deal with it. Together. That's what love is." Emma stood. "But right now, you're not dealing with anything. You're just empty. And so is she." After Emma left, Nathan sat alone in his office. He thought about Louise, about the way she'd looked at him that first night, testing him with her old clothes and honest eyes, the way she'd laughed over cheap diner coffee, the way she'd held his hand in the park, choosing him despite her fear. She'd been brave, he'd been a coward. Nathan made a decision. That evening he drove to Louise's apartment. His heart pounded as he climbed the stairs. He didn't have a speech prepared. Didn't have grand gestures or perfect words. He just had the truth. He knocked. No answer. He knocked again. "Louise, it's Nathan. Please, I need to talk to you." The door stayed closed, but he heard movement inside, knew she was there, listening. "I was wrong," he said through the door. "I let fear control me. I let my mother's voice get louder than my own heart. And I hurt you because I was too afraid to admit that you're the best thing that's ever happened to me." Silence. "I know I don't deserve another chance. I know I failed you when you needed me to be strong. But Louise," his voice cracked, "I can't breathe without you. These past 2 weeks have been hell. Not because my life is different, but because you're not in it." Still nothing. Nathan pressed his forehead against the door. "I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm just asking you to know that I was wrong about everything. You're not the one who doesn't belong in my world. My world doesn't deserve you." He waited. The door didn't open. Nathan finally walked away, his chest hollow. Inside, Louise sat on the floor, her back against the door, tears streaming silently down her face. She'd heard every word, felt every syllable like a touch, but she didn't open the door. Because sorry wasn't enough anymore. She needed to know he meant it, that he wouldn't run the next time things got hard, that he would choose her even when it cost him something. Words were easy. Actions were truth. The next day, Nathan did something he'd never done before. He called a press conference. His PR team panicked. His board questioned his judgment. His mother called, furious, demanding he cancel. He ignored them all. When the cameras turned on, Nathan stood at the podium, his expression calm but resolute. "I've called you here to address recent speculation about my personal life. I want to be clear about something." He looked directly into the cameras. "I am seeing someone. Her name is Louise Carter. She's kind, intelligent, and more genuine than anyone I've ever met. She's also been subjected to cruel judgment and invasive speculation because of her association with me." Reporters shouted questions. Nathan continued. "Louise didn't ask for this attention. She didn't pursue me for my money or my name. In fact, she did everything she could to push me away because she knew this would happen. Because she knew people would judge her, dismiss her, reduce her to a gold digger or an opportunist." His voice hardened. "She was right, and it's unacceptable." The room was silent now. "I'm not here to defend my choices to you. I'm here to say that Louise Carter is the most remarkable person I've ever known, and if my family, my colleagues, or the public can't accept that, then they don't deserve access to my life." He paused. "That's all." He walked away from the podium as questions erupted behind him. Louise watched from her tiny apartment, her hand over her mouth, tears streaming. He'd done it. He'd chosen her, publicly, irrevocably. Her phone rang. Nathan. She stared at it, then answered. "I saw," she whispered. "I meant every word." Louise closed her eyes, her heart breaking and healing at the same time. "I know. Can I see you?" She should say no, should protect herself, but she was so tired of being afraid. "Yes." Nathan arrived within the hour. Louise opened the door before he could knock. They stood there facing each other across the threshold, both looking worn and raw and real. "Hi," Nathan said softly. "Hi." For a moment, neither moved. Then Louise stepped back, letting him in. Her apartment was small. A studio barely large enough for a bed, a couch, and a tiny kitchen. Books lined makeshift shelves. A single window overlooked the street. It was humble and warm, and nothing like Nathan's sleek penthouse. He'd never felt more at home. They sat on her worn couch, careful space between them. The silence stretched, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was necessary, the kind of quiet that came before truth. "I watched your press conference," Louise finally said. I should have done it sooner. Why didn't you? Nathan looked down at his hands. Because I was terrified of losing control, of being vulnerable in front of millions of people, of admitting that something mattered more than my carefully built image. He looked at her. But losing you was worse. Louise's eyes filled. I'm still scared, Nathan. Me too. What if it's not enough? What if your family never accepts me? What if... Then we deal with it, together. He shifted closer, his voice urgent but gentle. I can't promise everything will be perfect. I can't promise my mother will suddenly approve or that people will stop judging. But I can promise I won't run. Not again, not from this, not from you. A tear slipped down Louise's cheek. I don't want to change you or your life. I just want to be enough as I am. You are. Nathan reached up slowly, wiping her tear with his thumb. You're more than enough. You're everything. Louise leaned into his touch, her walls finally crumbling completely. I missed you, she whispered. I missed you too. Every second. He pulled her into his arms and Louise let herself be held. Let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, this could work. They stayed like that for a long time, finding their way back to each other in silence and closeness. The following weeks were different. Nathan didn't hide Louise anymore. He brought her to company dinners, introduced her to colleagues, included her in his life without apology. Some people whispered, some judged. Nathan didn't care. Louise met Emma officially. Nathan's sister pulled her into a hug the moment they met. Thank you for making my brother human again, Louise laughed, caught off guard by the warmth. They had coffee together while Nathan worked, and Emma asked real questions. Not about money or status, about books, dreams. What made Louise happy? By the end, they were laughing like old friends. He's different with you, Emma said quietly. Lighter, like he remembers how to breathe. Louise felt her chest tighten with emotion. He makes me feel brave. Good. You make him feel alive. But not everyone was welcoming. Victoria Cole remained coldly distant. She refused to meet Louise, ignored Nathan's calls, made her disapproval known through pointed silence and strategic absences. Nathan tried not to let it hurt, but it did. One evening, Louise found him on his apartment balcony, staring out at the city, tension in every line of his body. She wrapped her arms around him from behind, resting her cheek against his back. Talk to me. My mother called. She's removing me from certain family trusts, says it's because I'm making reckless personal decisions that reflect poorly on the family name. His voice was flat, controlled. Translation: she's punishing me for choosing you. Louise's heart broke. Nathan, I don't care about the money. He turned to face her, his eyes fierce. I need you to know that. I don't care about trusts or inheritance or family approval. I care about you. But it still hurts. Yes. His honesty was raw. It still hurts. Louise pulled him close and Nathan let himself break a little in her arms. Let himself grieve the relationship with his mother that had always been conditional, transactional. I'm sorry, Louise whispered. Don't be. You didn't do this. She did. He pulled back slightly, looking at her, and I'd make the same choice 1,000 times. Louise kissed him then, soft and gentle and full of everything she couldn't say. Nathan kissed her back like she was air. They stood on that balcony, the city lights glowing around them, holding on to each other against the world. Time passed. Seasons shifted. Nathan and Louise built something real, messy and imperfect and beautiful. They fought sometimes, about small things, about his tendency to overwork, about her habit of closing off when hurt. But they always came back, always talked, always chose each other. Louise started taking night classes, not because Nathan pushed her, but because she wanted to. Wanted to grow. He supported her quietly, never making it about money, just about belief. Nathan started therapy, working through years of family pressure and emotional walls, learning to be vulnerable, to trust. They grew together, separately and as a pair, but the shadow of Victoria's disapproval lingered, until one evening, 6 months after the press conference, when Nathan's phone rang. Emma's voice was tight. "It's Mother. She's in the hospital. Heart attack." The world tilted. Nathan and Louise rushed to the hospital together. Emma met them in the waiting room, pale and shaken. The doctors said Victoria was stable, but it had been close. When Nathan was finally allowed in her room, Victoria looked small in the hospital bed, fragile in a way he'd never seen. Her eyes opened. Found him. "Nathan, I'm here." She looked past him, saw Louise standing in the doorway, uncertain. For a long moment, Victoria just stared. Then quietly, she spoke. "I was wrong." Nathan went still. "I spent so long protecting this family's image, our legacy, that I forgot what actually matters." Her voice was weak but clear. "I almost died today, and all I could think about was how much time I've wasted being angry at you for finding happiness." She looked at Louise. "Come here, child." Louise approached slowly, her heart pounding. Victoria studied her with those sharp eyes, then unexpectedly reached for her hand. "My son loves you. I love him too. I can see that now." Victoria's grip tightened slightly. "I was afraid of change, afraid of losing control, afraid that if Nathan chose differently than I wanted, it meant I'd failed as a mother." Tears slipped down her face. But the only failure was pushing him away. Nathan's throat closed. Victoria looked at him. "I'm sorry for everything. For making you feel like love wasn't enough. For valuing image over your happiness. For almost missing this because of pride." Nathan took his mother's other hand, and for the first time in years he felt something shift, something heal. "I forgive you," he whispered. Victoria cried. Not elegantly, not controlled, just honest, messy tears. And somehow, in that hospital room, something broken started to mend. Victoria's recovery was slow but steady. Nathan visited every day, sometimes with Louise, sometimes alone. They talked, really talked, for the first time in years, about fear, about expectations, about the weight of legacy and the cost of perfection. Victoria admitted things Nathan had never heard before, how lonely she'd been in her own marriage, how trapped she'd felt by duty, how she'd projected all of that onto him, wanting him to have power and success because she'd never had freedom. "I thought money and status would protect you," she said one afternoon, her voice tired. "I was wrong. They just built walls." Nathan held her hand. "I built walls too, but you let someone in. That took courage I never had." Louise came by with books and tea, sitting quietly, while Nathan and his mother navigated decades of distance. She didn't push, didn't demand inclusion, just offered presence. Victoria noticed. One day, when Nathan stepped out to take a call, Victoria looked at Louise. "You're good for him." Louise met her eyes. "He's good for me too. I don't expect you to forgive me for how I treated you, the things I said. You are protecting your son. I understand that. Victoria's expression softened. You're more gracious than I deserve. She paused. May I ask you something? Of course. What do you want from this? From Nathan? Louise didn't hesitate. I want him to be happy, to feel loved for who he is, not what he has. I want to build a life together that feels real. She looked down at her hands. I don't need his money. I never did. I just need him. Victoria studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I believe you. It was the beginning of something fragile but real. When Victoria was finally released from the hospital, she invited Nathan and Louise to dinner at her home, a formal olive branch. Louise was terrified. She stood in front of her closet, staring at her limited options. Nathan found her there, anxiety written all over her face. I don't know what to wear. He wrapped his arms around her from behind. Wear whatever makes you comfortable. Your mother's house probably has a dress code. My mother invited you, not a costume version of you, you. Louise turned to face him. What if I say the wrong thing, use the wrong fork? Then you'll be human, like the rest of us. He kissed her forehead. She's trying, Louise, really trying, but if at any point you want to leave, we leave together. Louise nodded, drawing strength from his certainty. That evening, they drove to Victoria's estate. The house was massive, elegant, intimidating. But Victoria met them at the door herself, not a butler or staff member. She wore a simple dress. Her makeup was minimal. She looked almost normal. Thank you for coming. Dinner was surprisingly intimate, just the three of them at a small table instead of the formal dining room. Victoria had actually cooked, something Nathan said he'd never seen before. The conversation was careful at first, polite, then, slowly, real. Victoria asked Louise about her work, her classes, her dreams. Actually listened to the answers, shared stories about Nathan as a child that made him blush and Louise laugh. He once tried to give away his entire trust fund to a homeless shelter, Victoria said, a small smile on her lips. He was 12, wrote a very official letter to the bank. Nathan groaned, Mother, it's true. The bank called me, completely baffled, and I was furious, thought he was being reckless. Her expression grew sad, but he was just being kind, and I punished him for it. You were scared, Nathan said quietly. I was wrong. After dinner, Victoria showed Louise the garden. They walked side by side in the cool evening air, Nathan trailing behind, giving them space. I won't pretend to understand your world, Victoria said. My life has been very different from yours, very insulated, very controlled. She paused near a rose bush. But I'm trying to learn that different doesn't mean wrong. I appreciate that. Victoria turned to face her. I need you to know something. If you and Nathan decide to build a life together, marriage, children, whatever you choose, you will have my support. Full and public support. Louise's breath caught. I can't undo the harm I caused, the judgment, the cruelty, but I can be better going forward. Victoria's eyes were sincere. You make my son happy. That's all I should have ever cared about. Tears spilled down Louise's cheeks. She hadn't realized how much she'd needed to hear that. Victoria, awkwardly but genuinely, pulled her into a hug. Nathan watched from the garden path, his own eyes wet. The following months brought real change. Victoria became an unexpected ally. When society gossip continued, she shut it down with icy precision. When family members made snide comments, she defended Louise publicly. She even started volunteering at a literacy program Louise recommended, getting her hands dirty for the first time in decades. Nathan and Louise's relationship deepened in ways that felt solid, lasting. They talked about the future openly now, where they wanted to live, what kind of life they wanted to build. Neither needed grand gestures or perfect plans. They just needed each other. One evening, Nathan took Louise back to the restaurant where they'd had their first date. She smiled when she realized where they were. Feeling nostalgic. Something like that. They sat at the same table by the window. Ordered the same food, but everything was different now. The nervous tension was gone, replaced by comfort, knowing, trust. After dinner, Nathan reached across the table and took Louise's hand. "I've been thinking about that first night, when you walked in wearing old clothes, testing me." Louise laughed softly. "I was so sure you'd leave. Best decision I ever made was staying." He squeezed her hand. "You changed my entire life, Louise. Made me feel things I didn't think I was capable of anymore. Made me want to be better, braver, more real. You did the same for me." Nathan took a breath. Then slowly, he stood and moved beside her chair. Louise's heart began to race. He knelt down, right there in the restaurant, and pulled out a small velvet box. "I don't need you to fit into my world. I want to build a new one with you, one where we both belong. Where we choose each other every single day, not because it's easy, but because it's right." His voice shook slightly. "Louise Carter, will you marry me?" Louise couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. She just nodded, tears streaming, as Nathan slipped a simple, perfect ring onto her finger. The restaurant erupted in applause. Nathan pulled her into his arms, and Louise held on tight, overwhelmed by joy and disbelief, and the stunning reality that this beautiful, impossible love was real. "Yes," she finally whispered against his chest. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Nathan laughed, the sound full of relief and happiness. They stayed there, holding each other in the middle of the restaurant where their story began, no longer afraid of judgment or difference or the opinions of others. Just two people who'd found each other against all odds and chose love anyway. 1 year later. The wedding was small, intimate. Not the society event Victoria might have once demanded, but something real and warm and theirs. They married in a garden at sunset, surrounded by people who actually mattered. Emma stood beside Louise as maid of honor, beaming. Victoria sat in the front row, tears streaming openly down her face. Mia dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. Nathan's closest friends, the few who'd proven themselves genuine, watched with smiles. Louise wore a simple dress, no designer label, no extravagance. Just soft white fabric that moved like water and made Nathan's breath catch when he saw her. He wore a suit, but he'd loosened the tie, left the top button undone, let himself be comfortable instead of perfect. When they exchanged vows, there were no grand speeches, just honest promises. "I promise to see you," Nathan said, his voice steady but emotional. "Really see you. Every day. Not who the world thinks you should be, but who you are." Louise's tears fell freely. "I promise to let you. To trust you. To build something real with you, even when it's scary." They kissed as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky gold and pink, and everyone who watched knew they were witnessing something rare. True love, hard-won and honest. The reception was laughter and music and joy. Victoria danced with Nathan, whispering apologies and blessings. Louise danced with her father-in-law, Nathan's distant formal father who'd slowly begun to thaw, asking her genuine questions about her life. Later, Nathan and Louise slipped away from the party, walking hand in hand through the garden. "How are you feeling?" Nathan asked. "Like I'm dreaming." "Good dream?" "The best." They stopped beneath a tree strung with lights, and Nathan pulled her close. "I keep thinking about that first night," he said softly. "How you walked in looking like you didn't care what I thought. How terrified I was that you'd see through me." "I did see through you." "I know. That's what scared me." He smiled. "And saved me." Louise reached up, touching his face. "We saved each other." They stood there, swaying slightly to the distant music, wrapped in each other and the quiet knowledge that they'd fought for this, earned this. Time moved forward. Nathan and Louise bought a house together, not a mansion. Not a tiny apartment, something in between. A place with a garden Louise could tend and an office where Nathan could work from home more often, a place that felt like both of them. Louise finished her degree, started working at a non-profit that provided books to underserved communities. Nathan supported her quietly, never overshadowing her accomplishments, just celebrating them. Nathan stepped back from some of his business obligations, delegated more, spent less time chasing success and more time living. He and Louise traveled, not to luxury resorts, but to small towns and quiet beaches and places that felt real. Victoria became a constant presence in their lives. She and Louise developed an unlikely friendship, bonding over books and gardens and honest conversations about life and regret and second chances. "I wasted so much time," Victoria said one afternoon, helping Louise plant roses. "You're here now. That's what matters." Victoria looked at her daughter-in-law with something like wonder. "You're wiser than I ever was. I just know what I almost lost. It makes you grateful." 2 years after their wedding, Louise found out she was pregnant. Nathan cried when she told him. Actual tears of joy and terror and overwhelming love. "We're going to be parents." "We are. I don't know how to do this." Louise laughed, taking his hand and placing it on her still flat stomach. "Neither do I. We'll figure it out together." They had a daughter, small and perfect and loud. They named her Grace. Victoria held her granddaughter with trembling hands and wept. "She's beautiful." "She is," Nathan agreed, watching his mother transform before his eyes. Louise watched them both, her heart full to bursting. This life they'd built, messy and imperfect and nothing like what either of them had planned, was everything. Grace grew, toddled around their garden, learned to laugh from her father and read from her mother and be kind from her grandmother. On quiet evenings after Grace was asleep, Nathan and Louise would sit on their porch, wrapped in blankets, watching the stars. "Do you ever regret it?" Louise asked one night. "Giving up the life you had before?" Nathan looked at her like she was crazy. "Never. Not once. Even when things are hard. Especially then." He pulled her closer. "You're the best thing that ever happened to me, Louise. You and Grace. This life, I didn't give anything up. I finally found what I was looking for." Louise rested her head on his shoulder. "Me too." They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes from years of choosing each other, of weathering storms and celebrating joys and building something that couldn't be shaken. Nathan thought back to that first night, to the woman in old clothes who'd walked into his life and changed everything. He'd been so lonely then, so lost, so convinced that connection was impossible. And then Louise had appeared, honest and imperfect and real. She tested him, challenged him, loved him anyway. And he'd learned that the truest wealth had nothing to do with money. It was found in quiet moments, in honest laughter, in someone who saw your flaws and stayed, in choosing love even when it was hard. Louise looked up at him, her eyes reflecting starlight. "What are you thinking about?" "How lucky I am," she smiled. "Me too." They kissed softly, years of love in that simple gesture. Inside, Grace stirred in her crib, dreaming baby dreams. Outside, the world kept turning, but here, in this moment, everything was exactly as it should be. Two people who'd found each other against impossible odds, who'd fought through judgment and fear and their own wounded hearts, who'd chosen love every single day and built something beautiful from that choice. Sometimes the greatest love stories aren't the ones we plan. They're the ones that find us when we've stopped pretending, when we've stripped away the masks and stood vulnerable in our truth, hoping someone will see us, really see us, and choose to stay. Nathan and Louise didn't have a perfect love. They had a real one, built on honesty instead of appearances, on choosing each other even when the world said they didn't fit, on believing that love isn't about erasing differences, but celebrating them. Their story reminds us that wealth isn't measured in bank accounts or social status. It's measured in moments, in the way someone looks at you when you're at your worst, in the hands that hold yours through storms, in the quiet certainty that you're not alone anymore. We spend so much of our lives trying to be enough for others, enough for society, enough for family, enough for expectations that were never ours to begin with. But the most radical thing you can do is be yourself, flawed, imperfect, beautifully human, and trust that the right person will love you not despite those things, but because of them. Louise walked into that restaurant in old clothes, certain she'd be rejected. Instead, she found someone who saw her heart. And Nathan, behind all his success and walls, found someone who saw his. That's the kind of love worth fighting for, the kind that transforms you, the kind that makes you braver than you ever thought possible. So here's the question: have you found someone who sees the real you? Or are you still hiding, waiting for permission to be yourself? Love doesn't ask for perfection, it asks for courage. If this story moved you, if it made you believe in second chances and authentic connection, please like this video and subscribe for more stories that remind us what truly matters. Share it with someone who needs to hear that they're enough exactly as they are. And tell us in the comments, from 0 to 10, what's your rating for this story? What moment touched you most? Because your story matters too. And maybe, just maybe, it's time to write a new chapter. One where you choose love over fear, truth over perfection, and yourself over what everyone else thinks you should be. Some riches can't be bought. They're earned by the heart.